In the midnight glow where the stars align, we lose ourselves in the rhythm divine. Underneath the sky painted with dreams we're chasing.
Hello and welcome to episode 11. This is Mari, and I'm just jumping on here briefly to give an introduction for our episode today because this is actually airing the second part of our two-part transit episodes. We split this in half because we thought it got a bit long. It was a lot to cover because we were covering every single one of the planets by transit. So in our last episode, we covered the personal planets, the faster moving planets. And today we are going to jump right in with the social planets, starting with Jupiter. And without further ado, here is part 2 of our transits episode.
Okay, Jupiter. What we've gone over so far, those are the personal planets, and they're all pretty quick moving, right? We're talking, I think, Mars being so far the slowest at 6 to 7 weeks to move through a sign. So we're jumping to Jupiter and Saturn, the social planets, and Jupiter takes 1 year to move through a sign. So these are going to be lessons that are going to be with you longer. And as we move out into the outer planets, they are going to be much, much slower lessons. Bigger life themes come with these. Whereas those faster moving ones, sometimes it's even hard to keep track. They're moving so quickly. Life is going so quickly. It's hard to keep track of those. They're fun to watch as they go through the chart and be aware of. But once we get into the social planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and the outer planets, these are going to be around for years. And really having awareness around these really helps, really helps you harness their lessons. So Jupiter takes about 12 years to move through the zodiac, 1 year per sign, like I said. And Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It's growth, wisdom, and opportunity. Wherever it goes, life feels bigger. It blows it up. It zooms in. It takes a magnifying glass to that area of your life. And it's like, hey, look over here. Sometimes that is abundance, joy, breakthroughs. Other times it might be excess, overconfidence, or indulgence. Think of Jupiter as the cosmic magnifying glass. Like I said, it makes that part of life louder, more obvious, and more important. The one sort of misnomer about Jupiter is that wherever Jupiter goes, it brings good luck, like it's the planet of luck. Well, it is, but I like to think of it more as the magnifier. So whatever is there, it will magnify. And if there's shadow work to be done there, if there's work to be done internally there, it's going to make that bigger too and bring it to your awareness. So it's not just only bringing luck everywhere it goes. It's making bigger and expanding that area so that you examine it. But it can bring wonderful blessings, absolutely. So core themes: growth, opportunity, blessings, and wisdom, faith, optimism, trust in life, teaching, learning, spiritual or philosophical expansion, risk-taking, generosity, celebration, but also exaggeration, overindulgence, arrogance, and inflated expectations. So some high road choices would be to seek wisdom, stay humble, follow opportunities with gratitude, and use growth to benefit others. Some low road pitfalls might be overextending, promising more than you can deliver, excess spending, or excess anything really. Try to remember balance wherever Jupiter goes, if you can try to stay in balance, or spiritual bypassing. Because there is a spiritual element to Jupiter, very much so. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and there is a real weaving of belief and spirituality with this as well. Okay, Jupiter through the houses. First house is literally an expansion of self. So your confidence could bloom. Others might see you in a brighter light. You could launch a new business, start traveling, or people will suddenly say you're glowing. It's literally expanding who you are. It just makes you want to live bigger, live louder, live bigger when it moves through the first house. Second house would be an expansion of the area of money and values. So that could mean great abundance coming into your life or overspending on the other side. But ultimately, what you're learning here is what enough really means. What enough means as in what you bring in, as in financially, enough possessions, and am I enough, right? Because self-worth is also wrapped up with the second house. So Jupiter moving through the second house is teaching you what enough really means. So an example might be you get a raise at work. You are starting multiple income streams, or you blow money on big ticket items like cars and furniture. So things to watch for. Third house, this is blowing up and expanding the area of your mind and connections. So during this time, you often want to learn, you want to teach, you want to talk, you want to travel. This is short-term travel. Ninth house would be more our long-term travel. We're talking bigger trips, other cultures, etc. But short-term trips can be, anywhere in your local area. It's a fast-moving pace because it rules Gemini. So you're just wanting to get curious about things and absorb information. An example might be taking a certification course, starting a podcast, or reconnecting with your siblings, that sort of thing. Fourth house is going to expand and zoom in on home and family. The roots of your life grow. So some examples here, you might buy a home during this time. You might want to move somewhere bigger. You might be welcoming a baby to expand your household, your home, or a new roommate, perhaps. Or you discover deep ancestral wisdom during this time. You might look at doing ancestral work. So that's also associated with the fourth house. Fifth house, we're looking at expanding joy, creativity, and romance. You are fertile in every sense, just excitement for life often, and joy, and your inner child can be really lit up through this transit. So you might fall in love, you write a book, you might suddenly decide you want to act in a play, or you're having a child during this time. Sometimes this can show up as big drama in dating because romance is here too. So one of the things to sort of watch out for. Sixth house, we're looking at expansion and zooming in on work and health routines, opportunities at work, and shifts in your wellness. An example might be landing a better job, starting a wellness program or routine, a new fitness routine, or maybe you decide to start cooking more at home, some healthier meals, get your nutrition in order. You finally get a diagnosis and a healing plan for something maybe you've been putting off. You need to go into the clinic and you've just been putting it off, but you decide now is the time. But one risk here might be taking on too much, right? Because we're talking about I am guilty of this. Whether I'm having a Jupiter through my sixth house transit or not, I tend to be a person of extremes when it comes to my health routines. I'm all or nothing, and I'm really learning to balance that because I burn out when I haven't been working out for feels like months, and I have just been eating whatever I want, and all of a sudden I go, nope, today's the day. And then I just go so extreme on an exercise routine that I'm completely burn myself out, and it's just not sustainable. So that would be something to watch for if Jupiter's moving for your sixth house. Balance. Okay, seventh house, expansion through relationships. Your partnerships often really flourish during this time. There's a focus on partnership, close friendship. It could be work partnership, like I said, as well. But mostly when we look at seventh house, we're usually looking at your romantic partner, your spouse. So example might be you meet a mentor or someone you're going to work with closely that you admire. You might have a marriage proposal during this time. You form a powerful business partnership. The low road in this example or in the seventh house could be codependency or too many irons in the fire with other people. You're trying to do too much. So just something to be aware of there. Eighth house is going to be expanding the area of intimacy and shared resources. Deep transformative growth is what this transit is asking of you. So themes around your inheritance, loans approved or not, big investments, your sexual, spiritual intimacy often deepens during this time. You're looking for deeper experiences and to go into more psychological depths during this time to understand what's under the surface of things. On the shadow side, debt or over-reliance on others' resources may pop up. Over-dependence, on others. So something to watch for. Ninth house is an expansion of our worldview. Travel, study, publishing, and spiritual awakenings can happen during this transit. You might go back to school, move abroad, or even just take a big trip, travel somewhere overseas. Publish your work. If you've been creating something, this is a time to put it out into the world. This ninth house transit with Jupiter feels like life is asking you to think bigger, to really zoom out, because the ninth house is Sagittarius if we're looking at Aries being the first house. And so Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So it's very at home in the ninth house. 10th house is zooming in on your career and reputation. You're seen more publicly during this time. You may get a promotion, award, recognition. You might step into a leadership role. On the shadow side, you may have this tendency to overwork, to be arrogant perhaps about your abilities in work, or being a little too big for your britches at work. So things to be aware of. Harness the positive sides of it and always be aware of the shadow. 11th house is expanding the area of community and your dreams and plans. Friends, groups, long-term goals can all grow during this time. You might join a new community, you might start a nonprofit, or you might take a dream and turn it into reality. That's something that you've really been dreaming of for a long time, that Jupiter's there to help you bring that into life. 12th house, this is expanding and looking at your inner life and your spiritual life. So during this time, often you will have subconscious growth. You might be looking at psychic topics, spiritual topics. There's often quiet blessings and sort of internal epiphanies that happen during this time. You may find yourself being more connected with your spirit guides and what is beyond us. Maybe during this time you discover meditation. You spend time in a retreat. You find hidden mentors or, mentors that appear during this time in a spiritual sense. Sometimes this is a guardian angel transit, protection you don't even know about, something that's happening outside of your actual knowing, but you're being protected during this time. So yeah, that is beautiful, expansive Jupiter. I really love Jupiter. But again, there's a caution and a shadow with everything. So it can overinflate as well.
Up next, we have Saturn, which I think is, known to be one of the transits that we tend to focus on. I call Saturn the teacher. I think all the planets can be teachers, but Saturn's kind of like that stern principal teacher. Yeah. So it's in each sign for 2.5 to 3 years, and it takes 29.5 years to go all the way around the chart back to the same sign, which is known as our Saturn return.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another podcast. So Saturn's role is mastery, structure, time. The transit brings tests, deadlines, responsibilities, strength. It helps us see what we want to commit to. It helps grow durability. The core themes for this transit are going to be discipline, boundaries, expertise, apprenticeship, limitations that clarify priorities. It also is building foundations that last. The high road would look like doing the work, pacing yourself, defining your standards, keeping your promises. So again, Saturn comes out in and it really teaches discipline, boundaries, where you need it. So if you are being true to yourself and you have that discipline, you have those boundaries, then your Saturn transits are going to come with much more ease. It's when we fight those things that Saturn comes in and, kind of gives us that stern awakening is what I'll say if we're not listening. So the low road for Saturn is fear, rigidity, scarcity mindset, avoidance. So if you're noticing any of those coming up, just really focus on, again, what your goals are. Do the work, put up those boundaries, and then it doesn't have to be as intense or scary as we may think it might be as we're watching Saturn go through our chart. I know Mari talked about how, sometimes you have some anticipation for it, but really you can use that. So if Saturn's going into your ninth house, and ninth house is the house of higher education, and it's going to require discipline and structure, and you're like, I want to go back to school. That would be something that if I was looking at a chart and I saw Saturn was going in their 9th house and they wanted to go back to school, I would think that that would be a good time to do something like that, because Saturn's going to help give you that discipline and that structure. So through the houses, we're going to go a little bit more in detail with these last few planets, because again, they're what we really focus on when looking at a chart. They're longer transits, but they tend to have a little bit more influence that shows up in our life when you go back and look in your life at something big that happened. So if you go back, if you're just learning astrology now and you think, oh gosh, 25 years ago when I went to college, or 25 years ago when I got married or had a baby or lost my job, if you go back and you pull up that transit chart from that time and you take a look, I remember as I was learning astrology, I didn't even feel like I knew enough to really know what I was looking for. But when I pulled up the chart, even for a beginner, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So that's really validating when you can go back and look at past events. Okay, so first house, Saturn transit. First house is the self-identity, the body. So if you're having your first house transit, this is going to be, working hard, self-discipline, redefining maybe your personal image. It may feel a little bit, I guess the low road would be feeling low energy at times, but really, again, that Saturn's coming in to teach us something and to help us with those boundaries in that area. Okay, second house is our money, possessions, self-worth again. So what Saturn in the second house could look like would be maybe financial restructuring, paying debts off, budgeting, learning the value of yourself. And again, maybe you feel a little scarcity, but it really leads to stability. Third house theme is communication, siblings, short distance travel. So this could look like having some serious conversations, maybe serious conversations with your siblings, or repairing any relationships with siblings or neighbors. And fourth house is the home, family, roots, your inner foundation. So this could be just kind of maybe some changes in family responsibilities. Maybe you're moving, or maybe you're doing some home repairs, reestablishing your emotional security, maturing on how you relate to your past. Fifth house is the house of creativity, romance, children, joy. So when Saturn is transiting through the fifth house, you're going to learn to have fun. If you're not already having fun, but you can also be serious and have fun. So that's what that kind of looks like, that Saturn transit in that Leo house of fun. Do creative projects, romantic connections, parenting responsibilities. Saturn can come in and just help us set up boundaries for things like that. Sixth house is work, health, and daily routines. What it might look like with Saturn transiting there is increased maybe job responsibilities, or maybe the need for us to change our daily routines or our health routines, getting more organized and mastering our habits. Seventh house is partnership, marriage. So Saturn might come in and help us with, new agreements and our commitments, or relationships might be a little bit tested for stability or longevity, and lessons around boundaries and equality. Eighth house is intimacy, shared money, and transformation. So this could look like facing your fears around vulnerability, your joint finances, learning trust and responsibility and shared resources, and also deep inner transformation. Ninth house is travel, higher education, and beliefs. This Saturn transit could be expanding your worldwide discipline, your worldview discipline, formal studies, structured spiritual practice. Maybe your beliefs are changing or shifting a little bit, and just rebuilding around that with maturity, because Saturn's going to pull that in. 10th house is career, reputation, life direction. Saturn's going to come in and pull in hard work, career tests, increase maybe authority or visibility at work. It could feel like pressure, but it often leads to, that growth and achievement in the end. It's encouraging us to grow where we need to grow. 11th house, friends, groups, long-term goals. So when Saturn's in the 11th house, friendships may shift and maybe, your friend circle maybe getting a little bit smaller. You're reassessing your goals, maybe putting long-term dreams into practical steps. And 12th house is spirituality, solitude, subconscious. So what it might look like during a Saturn transit is deep inner work, releasing old baggage, facing hidden fears. You may feel a little isolated, but it's a preparation period before Saturn crosses the ascendant into the first house.
Okay, Uranus, the awakener. So Uranus takes 7 years approximately to move through a sign. So it hangs out for a bit, 84 years to move through the entire chart. So if we are blessed, we will see a Uranus return at 84 years. But yeah, Uranus is the disruptor. It comes in and disrupts the status quo. It represents shocks, liberation, sudden downloads, rebellion, and radical authenticity. You don't plan a Uranus transit. It happens suddenly, like lightning. It's electric. Uranus literally represents electricity, innovation, revolution, and rebellion. But the deeper gift in Uranus transits is freedom, ultimately, from what you didn't realize was holding you captive. It's breaking the chains off that you didn't know were there. But it can shake you. It can really wake you up. And again, it is up to you how you respond to those shocking events. So core themes again, sudden breakthroughs and breakdowns, I should say. Awakening to truth, craving freedom, unexpected events that push you into your authenticity, technological leaps, radical shifts in lifestyle or your beliefs, and nervous system upgrades, literally on the internal, whether it be anxiety, restlessness, or lightning bolt insights, kind of like downloads, epiphanies, things that come to you quickly. Some high road choices for a Uranus transit would be embracing change. It is not always easy, but it is ultimately trying to give you a gift. So to really embrace the change that comes, to stay flexible, because we know that resistance doesn't make it easier. To innovate during this time and to really embrace new horizons. Get excited for what is new. Some low road pitfalls would be choosing fear over trust. Trust the process. Leaning into the chaos, instability, maybe rebellion for its own sake, rebellion without a cause, just because you're feeling that Uranus want to kick back, really anchor into what it is you're fighting for and do it in a way that comes from love. And resistance, like I said, that makes the shocks harsher. If you're pushing back, it's going to make it harder. So through the houses, the first house of identity and self-expression, this would be a radical reinvention of self. The inner process would be feeling restless in your old identity. You're craving freedom to be authentic and resisting labels. You might be pushing against what society says is normal if it doesn't feel right to you. Who are you really? As outer events that can happen during this time might be dramatic changes in your appearance. You might choose to show this outwardly. Shocking life pivots, eccentric or unconventional self-expression. You're just expressing yourself in a way that shows, I'm changing. I'm changing on the inside. Second house, the house of money, possessions, and self-worth. Shocks and stability that push you to redefine value. So internally, you could be dealing with sudden financial ups and downs, discovering your worth beyond material, beyond the material world and what your income is and what you have. Outer events, this could result with something like job loss, suddenly, surprise inheritance, large gift of money, unexpected new income streams, things like that. So again, we're looking at sudden events that are a catalyst. Third house, this is about your mind, communication, and siblings again. So a theme here might be new ways of thinking and speaking. Internally, you might be experiencing sudden insights, flashes of genius, a restless mind. Events that could happen during this time might be breakthrough learning, erratic communication patterns. People, while you're adopting this Uranian theme in that house, people might be confused about the way that you're communicating. You're learning a new way to speak and express yourself more authentically. There could be shocking news from siblings or your neighbors during this time. The fourth house, home, family, and roots. The theme is Uranus here is trying to free you from the past. So internally, you might be feeling trapped in old family patterns and a need for independence from your origins. You might be feeling this call to sever those ancestral and karmic contracts and say, this isn't for me anymore. I don't need to perpetuate this. On the outside, there could be sudden moves, like physically moving to a different house. Something happens so that you are suddenly you're moving house. Family upheavals, or you might find yourself in an unconventional living arrangement in whatever way that might look. Fifth house, creativity, romance, and children. The theme here is to liberate your love and self-expression. So internally, you might have an attraction to unconventional relationships, interesting people that you wouldn't normally be interested in, or not your type, if you will. You might be restless in traditional roles, kind of trying to break out of the mold. And you may have bursts of creativity that just come from nowhere that needs to be expressed. On the outside, this could result with sudden romances. You just meet somebody and they, that love at first sight feeling, like that lightning bolt hit you. Well, there you go. Uranus in the fifth house. Creative breakthroughs and surprises with children, meaning you could be surprised by a pregnancy or your children might do something that surprises you, right? There's the theme of children in the fifth house. Sixth house, work, health, and service. Here, Uranus is trying to revolutionize your routines. So internally, you might have a resistance to monotony. You don't want to be doing the same old, same old. You want to shake it up. You want to change up your routine, bring in something new and interesting. You might be craving work that feels freeing, not the same old, same old. Your body is becoming sensitive to old patterns and is asking for something new. That often happens. Maybe that old workout routine, suddenly that kind of hurts my hip. I have to change it. I have to change something in order to take care of myself better. This can result in sudden job changes, again, because this is work, how we work. So job is related here. Shifts in your health that are meant to, again, highlight something for your good. On the outset, that could look like something negative, right? A health concern comes up, but it comes up so that you can address it, so that you can take care of it. And an attraction to alternative healing sometimes comes up with a sixth house Uranus transit, being inventive about the way in which you take care of yourself. Seventh house, partnerships. Theme here is freedom versus commitment. So internally, you're likely craving space, wanting a little space for yourself. You're reevaluating your bonds with others. And ultimately, you're seeking authentic partnerships. If something feels inauthentic, if it doesn't feel real to you in partnership, Uranus is going to show that to you. So sometimes what can happen during this transit are breakups or sudden marriages, right? You find somebody that lightning bolt hit and you're instantly in love and we're doing this. Unconventional relationships sometimes happen with this transit, like polyamory or maybe a long distance relationship. Uranus is all about the unconventional. Eighth house, intimacy, shared resources, and transformation. This is around shocks in intimacy and finances with others. So that could mean internally sexual awakening, liberation from dependency on others, or suddenly really needing to do that shadow work. It comes to your attention that, there's a shadow here I have not addressed. There's something that has been hidden from me internally that I need to address now. Outer events might be inheritances, tax surprises, investments, sudden endings, or deepening of intimacy. Those are kind of polarities, either a sudden ending or you're going deeper with your partner in this transit. Ninth house, belief, spirituality, and travel. Uranus is asking for radical worldview shifts. So you're likely craving freedom from dogma being structured, rule-based religion. Uranus craves freedom. And it's outside of convention. So where Saturn would be more structure and convention, and these are the rules, Uranus is basically the opposite of that. So if you find yourself in a religion that is more dogmatic, more structured, more rule-based, during a Uranus transit to your ninth, you might feel need to resist or push out of that and have a little more freedom in your spiritual walk. You might be feeling restless spiritually, but also this can bring flashes of real wisdom and downloads of truth during this time. You might find yourself with sudden travel opportunities. You might leave a religion, join a religion. You might publish or have teaching breakthroughs. If you're a teacher or preacher, you might have breakthroughs in the way in which you teach. 10th house, career, reputation, and authority. So this is about public reinvention, who you are out in the world. Internally, you might feel restlessness in your career. Like, I need to change. This isn't for me anymore. You're likely going to crave being authentic in the world. Whatever that true essence of who you are, you want to show that on the outside, in the world, how you present yourself. So this could mean sudden job changes, whether that's your choice or something just suddenly happens. That because it's going to bring something to light for you if you have a sudden job change. A promotion or a promotion collapses, right? You have something coming and wait a second, that gets taken away. Radical career pivots often happen with Uranus transiting the 10th. But again, on the positive side, you could have a sudden download or inspiration about starting a new business, something that is very aligned and authentic with you. And you're going to quit your 9 to 5 because you have this insight in that you're going to build something for yourself. 11th house, friends, communities, future vision. The theme here is revolutionary communities and dreams. You may be realizing old friendships no longer fit, or the group you're in, the social group that you're in is no longer fit. As a matter of fact, I have an example of this myself as I moved through my 20s and then into my 30s and found myself in a much more spiritually minded place. There are certain groups of friends that I just didn't energetically fit with anymore. And it was kind of hard to figure out, because I still love these people, but it was hard to figure out how to be authentically myself within a group of people that I don't know how else to explain it. I didn't vibrate at the same frequency as. I know that sounds super woo-woo, but I don't know how else to explain it. Something wasn't meshing the same way. And that can come with something like Uranus moving through the 11th house. You have these realizations of this group of people that you may really care about just doesn't really fit who you are anymore. You might be finding new tribes, new people. And finally, the 12th house, subconscious, spirit, and karma. The theme here is awakening through the unseen. You might find yourself restless, actually, in solitude. That the solitude of the 12th house and then Uranus coming there kind of gives you this jittery feeling of like, can I actually sit in meditation today? You may have flashes of intuition, psychic downloads, but ultimately this need to break from hidden fears and to find trust in that place. It's going to shake you up spiritually. So you may have shocking dreams, sudden spiritual awakenings, and mystical experiences. I think 12th house Uranus is a really cool placement or transit, but also placement because it's mine. I have Uranus in the 12th. And I think it's done some really beautiful things for me in that house. Yeah, that wraps up Uranus.
All right, on to Neptune. So Neptune is the mystic, and Neptune takes 14 years to travel through a sign, 165 years to go around your whole chart back to the sign it was in when you were born. So the role of Neptune is to dissolve what's rigid so that the higher vision can emerge. It rules our dreams, spirituality, compassion, art. Transits can feel enchanted or confusing until you align with your intuition and your truth. So core themes for Neptune transits are inspiration, imagination, empathy, surrender, blurred boundaries, escapism, mystical openings, synchronicities, music, art, film. So the high road for this would be to meditate, make art, serve, keep healthy boundaries, and clear agreements. The low road pitfalls could be red flags that you're ignoring, addiction, savior, martyr patterns, or denial. So in your first house, Neptune comes in, and maybe, because this is your identity, so maybe a little gentler identity. The edges are blurred a little bit because, again, Neptune does bring in a little bit of confusion. So some things to focus on would be rebranding yourself, lean on meditation or compassion practices, use your tools if it feels hard. Second house is money, fog versus faith and value. Finances and self-worth need fluid. So ground your dreams in reality. This could be spiritual pricing for your work, but anchor it with math and clear boundaries. Third house, this is your poetic voice. When Neptune is transiting your third house, your study, intuitive learning, poetic communication. It could be songwriting, journaling, or taking that spiritual or creative class. Fourth house is going to be ancestral healing. So family roots dissolving, longing for sanctuary. You want to spruce up your home to give you some of those sacred places to go to. Maybe set up an altar space or do some deep healing in your ancestral lineage. Fifth house, this is romance art. So film, dance, devotional art, or fantasy romances can happen during this time because, again, Neptune is going to kind of blur the lines a little bit. Sixth house, sensitivity, your body, routine. So hydration, sleep, gentle movement, self-care. Seventh house is that house of partnership. So soul bonds, illusions in relationships can come up at this time. So love with your eyes wide open. Set clarity contracts, balance, devotion, and discernment. Eighth house, Neptune, eighth house transits are shared resources and intimacy, dissolving boundaries. Use energy healing, any other energy practices, but keep your money and energy exchange crystal clear. So you want to not have that illusion when it comes to your money and your energy. Ninth house is our beliefs, travel, higher learning, taking a mystical turn when Neptune is transiting it. So pilgrimage, study, or pursuing spiritual or philosophical paths. 10th house, this is our career house. So public life takes on spiritual, compassionate, or creative focus. This could be compassion-led brands, healing art careers. Just beware of lack of structure. 11th house is our networks, the collective. So this Neptune here could bring on service to the collective, join a humanitarian group, inspire community changes. And 12th house, with Neptune transiting your 12th house, you're dissolving into the unseen, the endings, dreams, and surrender. So during this time, retreats, dream work, forgiveness practice, or spiritual release journeys. So again, back to that self-care in the 12th house.
I personally love Neptune.
Yeah, think of it as our antenna to source.
To what is beyond. Yes, absolutely. To source. And although it sometimes can bring confusion, like you talked about, it definitely brings that transcendence and ultimately deep knowing at the end of its transits. Okay, Pluto. Oh, Pluto. Pluto is one of those planets that I personally have struggled with a bit, but it has given me so much. I would venture to say nearly all of my life lessons up to this point have been Pluto oriented. That's no over-exaggeration, of course. Not all of them. I learned from all the planets, but the Pluto ones have been significant, and they are with a lot of people. Pluto is the soul transformer. It is the slowest moving planet. It's the furthest out planet. So it takes between 12 and 30 years to move through a sign and 248 years to move through the entire zodiac. So Pluto has very much that oval shape orbit. when it's closest to the sun, it can move through a sign in as little as 12 years. And when it's at its furthest point, yeah, it could take 30 years to move through a sign. So Pluto is evolutionary. It doesn't mess around. It digs up what's rotten so you can compost it into power. It strips, it purges, and it transforms you from the bones outward. Pluto transits are rarely what I would describe as fun, but they are utterly life-changing. Pluto is one of those that the way it appears, the way the transits appear and come about in your life, it feels like it's all your powers being stripped away. But ultimately, what Pluto's trying to do is give you back more power than you ever had, but grounded in authenticity and truth and without shadow and ego and the things that get in our way, really, from being our true core essence, which is love and light and authenticity. So that's what Pluto's trying to give to you through its transits. So themes around Pluto are power struggles, destruction, control versus surrender, facing shadow, fear, and taboo, obsession, intensity, trauma, healing, death and rebirth cycles, identity, relationships, careers, beliefs, deep soul contracts, what you must face to evolve. Pluto's goal is for evolution. It's that alchemy to take something and transform it into something better. So high road choices for Pluto transits would be radical honesty, shadow integration, really doing the work and being honest with yourself around who you are and loving those parts. Shadow work, I feel like it's sort of misconstrued as this, I don't know, trying to fix the shadow, like noticing what's wrong with you and trying to fix it. It's not that at all. It's actually noticing the parts of you that you don't like and sending them love and deep acceptance so that they can alchemize. Surrender to the transformation. Surrender is a big, big word to apply to Pluto because, again, resistance makes it harder. It really does. With so many of these, they're teachers. They're trying to help you. So resistance, much like I'm sure anybody can remember in school, if you weren't that kid, there was that kid in school that was trying to resist and push back. Did that make it easier for that kid or for you to learn? No, of course not. And ultimately, the high road is the empowered rebirth, where you're standing on your own 2 feet. You know who you are on the other side of a Pluto transit, and you have the power to then share that with the world and to help others. So some low road pitfalls might be manipulation, obsession, destruction without regeneration, just tearing things down for the sake of tearing things down, clinging to what is already dead, right? Really staying stuck in the past and that white knuckling, no, I want this. When Pluto's trying to say that isn't serving your highest and best anymore. You need to let go. Okay, so Pluto through the first house, which is currently where Pluto is for me and has been since 2011 and will be until 2035. In the first house, Pluto is working on identity and selfhood. So the themes here are ego death and rebirth. Who you thought you were gets stripped down so the deeper self can emerge. The inner process is intense self-examination, feeling invisible and then unstoppable, right? There's a progression moving through these transits. They're slow. And often in the beginning, all of this raw sort of stuff comes up. And on the other side, there's that unstoppable, right? From invisible to unstoppable. There's possibly periods of obsession with your self-image, the way you look to others, caring a lot about what others think of you, those types of things. On the outside, radical changes, you may be making radical changes to your appearance. You may have health crises that demand new strength. And this time might create stories of survival. You yourself have gone through, during these transits, often things that you had to survive, but they have taught you that resilience, that backbone is stronger than ever after a first house transit. Second house, money, values, and security. The theme would be purification of worth. Your attachments to money and things gets tested. Internally, you're facing fears of not enoughness. That's really the root of this. learning what true value is, where your true value lies, and you're releasing shame around money, the lack thereof, or too much of any of it, releasing the shame around it and understanding your true worth. On the outside, this can look like bankruptcy, financial collapse, radical changes in income, becoming a minimalist, or gaining deep empowerment through new resources. Third house, mind communication siblings. The theme would be power of words. Your thought patterns get gutted and rebuilt. Internally, there is often an obsession with learning during this time. There might be a shadow in communication, meaning there may be a tendency to manipulate with your words, gossip, or silence others. Discovering that your voice is not a weapon, but a healing tool is ultimately the goal. On the outside, you may have intense sibling dynamics during this time. You may become a powerful writer or teacher using the power of communication. And you might cut cords with toxic neighbors or the people around you that simply don't serve you anymore. In the fourth house, which is home, family, and roots, this is about ancestral healing. The foundation of your life is gutted and rebuilt. So you may be confronting family secrets, breaking generational cycles, and redefining what home means to you. Sometimes divorce in the family can come up during this time, loss of a home, ancestral revelations, shocking things that you didn't know about your lineage, renovating your home, or uprooting your entire living situation altogether. Fifth house would be creativity, romance, and children. And the themes here are power, passion, and obsession in love and creativity. So internally, you are facing your shadows in romance, meaning jealousy, manipulation, desire, all of those sort of base instincts that we sometimes have around romantic relationships. You're learning to alchemize those. And you might have creative blockages that transform into creative genius, moving from one into the other. It's always about transformation. Dramatic love affairs, intense dynamics with your children, and consuming art projects can come up during this time. Real obsession with creation. Sixth house, health, work, and service. You are purging unhealthy systems. The body becomes a crucible. Internally, you're looking at your shadows around perfectionism, workaholic tendencies, or servitude. You're confronting those things. Your empowerment is going to come through discipline and healing. Sometimes chronic illnesses force your lifestyle to change during this time. A toxic work environment collapses. Your entire career path shifts. Although I don't know if I want to say career or just the way in which you work shifts, because career is more 10th house, but the way in which you work is 6th house. So that might shift dramatically. You might take a totally different approach to the way you work at the end of a transit through the 6th house with Pluto. 7th house is partnerships. So relationships as mirrors of power. You're facing within yourself control, obsession, or fear of betrayal in one-on-one bonds. It's all about those one-on-one bonds. And what are your underlying fears around that? Where do you need to address, again, things like jealousy? You're learning to relate from empowerment, but not from the shadow, right? You want to be empowered in who you are in relationships, stay strong in who you are, have your clear boundaries in who you are, but not be reactive from the shadow. Sometimes what can happen during a Pluto through the 7th house transit can be divorce or meeting a fated partner or a relationship that just consumes you. I think about the word obsession a lot with Pluto, which, again, I would caution to try to find balance with all of these things. So 8th house, intimacy, death, and shared resources. This is the underworld itself. So you're doing your shadow integration through shared resources, sexuality, and mortality. This is life and death and rebirth and true deep intimacy, all of those things. And shared resources is a pretty intimate thing too. If you're sharing money with somebody, it's a pretty intimate thing. Oftentimes you have to face fear of loss during this time, death, betrayal. There could be deep sexual healing. Old trauma around sexuality can come up and ask for healing during this time. obsession, again, is another word that I definitely would apply here. Or you have taboo encounters, things around the taboo, the occult, those types of things come up. And it is your choice what you are going to do with them, how you are going to alchemize that area. Ninth house would be beliefs, philosophy, and higher learning. So the destruction and rebirth of your worldview is the theme of this transit. Dogmas collapse. You will have an obsession with truth, philosophy, religion, or spirituality oftentimes during this transit. You're looking for those bigger picture truths. And if whatever belief system you are currently living feels too small, doesn't feel like you, or feels like maybe you've been lied to in some way or manipulated in some way, that's going to come to light during this kind of a transit. So you may leave a religion, have a radical spiritual awakening. You might publish transformative work or study occult or hidden wisdom. Take up classes and study with Pluto themes. 10th house is career, reputation, and authority. So the theme here is the public crucible. Your life path and reputation on the outside might go up in fire. And I don't say that again. So many of these things around Pluto, especially, it's hard to talk about Pluto transits because it would be easy to lean into fear instead of trusting that this is working for you. No one wants their reputation to go up in fire. That's not something that we're looking for. However, it might be what serves you best. And also, all of these things are examples. Not every one of these things happens to every person. These are simply themes, right? So internally, you're facing your fear of failure. You're facing that fear of what others think of you on a wider scale. You're facing that fear of failing in your legacy, what you leave behind. What will people remember me for? You're facing those fears. You might be facing the shadow of your ambition that is all-encompassing and just your drive for success overtakes everything. Well, that's a bit of a shadow, and that needs to be faced. You're learning lessons around power and authority. So again, here your career could collapse. You could have scandal of some sort in your life, a public rebirth, taking on an entirely new identity in an outward-facing way. You might rise into new leadership roles. Pluto is I always pictured the phoenix rising from the ashes, right? So if we're talking about everything burning down, you will rise. You will rise on the other side of this. The 11th house is friends, community, and future vision. So the theme is purging of groups and redefinition of your dreams. So you might be facing betrayal or power dynamics in friendships, which is tough stuff. It is. But ultimately, that's so that you can discover your true soul tribe. You might leave toxic communities. You might shift political causes. Maybe you realize the faults of the group you've been a part of. And you may rise as a collective leader and an example for the people around you. 12th house, subconscious, spirit, and karma. Theme here is shadow integration and spiritual initiation. So internally, you are going through isolation, surrender. You're confronting within yourself any addictive behaviors or hidden patterns. This is a mystical rebirth. So sometimes things that can happen are hospitalization, whether it be for mental things or addiction, incarceration. Those things are included in the 12th house. We don't talk about them a lot. That's more of a kind of a traditional belief around the 12th house, but things do pop up there around those themes. This is not for everyone. Again, some of these things are just horrifying to think about, but I have to give the wide scope of these themes so that you understand the wide scope that is Pluto and what it's about. So deep retreat, doing really deep inner work. And there can ultimately be profound spiritual awakenings with Pluto in the 12th, which is such a beautiful gift. Yeah, Pluto doesn't just knock on the door of your house. It tears the door off and clears out everything you've been hiding and, rips the roof off and just, it's intense. But it's also the most powerful initiation, I think, in astrology that is asking you to rise to your truth, your authenticity, and ultimately the love and divinity that you are. And that basically wraps up our transits. at least the main themes. And again, with all of these things, just hold in your heart and in your mind that you have choice and that these things are here to serve your highest and best. And they are ultimately gifts. No matter how difficult it looks, it is ultimately a gift. And you are in co-creation with the planets, with your chart, with the universe, and you are loved. And we love you. Thanks for listening.
Yes, thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us under the stars today. We hope you're leaving feeling inspired, grounded, and more connected to your inner truth.
And if you loved this episode, we would be so grateful if you would subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone you love.
If you're ready to explore your soul's path through psychological, evolutionary astrology, and personal astrological coaching, you can find Mari at yoursoulpurposeastrology.com or follow her on Instagram and Facebook at yoursoulpurposeastrology.
And if you're ready to illuminate your birth chart and explore how essential oils can support your emotional and energetic alignment, you can find Jody at earthandskyessentials.com or at Earth and Sky Essentials on Facebook and Instagram.
And remember, your soul is always guiding you.
The magic starts within.